Oh, I'm here. And so
there you are.
Got it. In theory. There we are. Look, it works. Technology. And the best part is you guys can't see me. You don't have to see me. It's an added bonus.
Hey, Julian, I haven't seen you for a long time.
No, Dennis,
Nice.
man. I'm doing fine, mate. I'm happy not getting on aeroplanes.
Yeah, I'm with you there. We're all in agreement there.
We're sitting on 111 degrees here at home right now.
Not quite doing that in the north of England, Dennis.
This is Jerez tire temperatures,
Yep.
track surface temperature.
Yeah.
It is.
Walking outside is like putting your cheek down on the straightaway.
Yeah. Yes. I did $1.15 in Vegas, and I'm never going back. I couldn't do it. So
we did a whole week of 120s last year, and we're looking forward to some more this year.
wow.
We have a competition with the Saudi Arabian army through our forest rangers
Uh-huh.
to who can log the highest temperature. And the Saudis lie all the time. We even caught them holding matches up to their, because we got satellites, so we can see what the fuck they're doing.
That's funny.
Never trust a Saudi.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay, let's talk current events or whatever. This is Soupkast episode, whatever it is for today, which is the 10th of July. Okay, Julian, we haven't talked to you in a long time, so you get to go first. How are you doing and how are things?
I'm very happy not to be travelling, especially in the current circumstances, and just keeping my hand in with a bit of World Endurance Championship, which is, last couple of years has been fascinating.
Yeah. I know you're a big fan of World Endurance and always have been.
Yeah, all the factories in, Michelin back in, Ducati with a semi-official team. It's all going on.
Dennis, so you logged 5 years with your son Kenny last week, and there's a book.
Yeah, that's right. And he's working on a book. He's about 7 or 8 chapters into it right now, and
Great.
I'm getting a lot of proofreading practice, particularly in Spanish.
Mm.
Now, actually, he can handle them both.
And his GoFundMe is still active, right?
Yeah, it is. And as far as collaboration with the book, you just go to Kenny Noyes, KennyNoyes.com, and all the information's there. So we really appreciated you giving us a shout the other day on Superbike Planet as well, Dean.
No problem. It was a fascinating read. Everything that he has been through. So I'm glad he's continuing to progress. Dennis, you want to start us out on current events? I'm an hour and a half from Minneapolis, so I've had other things to contend with, putting it lightly, for the last while. Please bring us up to MotoGP speed.
Well, I think according to my Twitter feed, you have to, minute to minute, it seems that Valentino Rossi is going to has reached an agreement for 1 year with Petronas, and with an option for a second year. Is that what you're reading, Julian?
Yeah, Dennis, your contacts will be much more up to date with than mine, but that's exactly what I understand, that this has been on the cards for quite a while.
Well, I'm seeing it in Gazzetta del Deporte out of Italy, and the Spanish, some of the Spanish podcasters or journalists who are reliable.
Yeah, exactly. The usually reliable sources to wheel that cliche out seem to be convinced it's happening, and the only question is whether they announce it in Jerez next week or not.
That would complete most of the big ones right now. We still have Dovizioso loose out there in the wind.
Yes, and the name Lorenzo keeps coming into my consciousness as well.
Looming specter of MotoGP racing. He's always there in the background. Ooh.
I wonder if that is just a threat by Ducati to scare Dovizioso.
Yep.
It must be interesting negotiations for with Simone Bastistella not speaking to Delinia.
Yes.
You know,
Well, Simone is a charming man, but he does have a track record for playing hardball pretty effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, man, we could call Carlo Pernat in as negotiator.
True.
Fine.
True. I'd pay money to see those two in a room negotiating something out.
oh, Bernat must. God, can you imagine going to work for Aprilia and it's Pernat across the table from you?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
must have been hell.
Yes. Yes.
If we're looking at Dovizioso is still unsigned, that's a strange one. I guess what
Yes.
we're looking at is Ducati's a little short on cash right now. They're going to be feeling it probably more than any of the manufacturers. They have been producing motorcycles, and they've got a sponsor that is not a popular sponsor to have in a time of coronavirus, when smoking is directly, is one of the most precarious activities that one can engage in.
Mm.
And they're running with, with Marlboro, whatever you call it.
The sponsor, they have to refer to it in the contract. It says they have to refer to it only as the sponsor. Cannot be named as Philip Morris or Marlboro. But
Say, I want to thank my sponsor, and you have.
exactly. Yeah.
The Dovey thing is. Did you see Scott Redding's comments?
No, I did. Now it's come rushing back to me.
Retire in 2017.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you think, well, yeah, you're Ducati, you're a factory. You need somebody who can win the title.
Mm-hmm.
And there is that horrible feeling I get that Dovey had one chance.
Yep.
And it's 3 years ago.
Yep.
And that, we all know, we can look, Nicky grabbed there was one chance. He grabbed it.
Yep.
And Ducati with Casey Stoner, back in the days when Davina was over in Aprilia where he's supposed to be. I'm always surprised to see him, come out of the Ducati door. I think he's in the negotiating.
Yeah.
And I remember, because he still smells like Aprilia to me. I remember when he used to sell Remember when he was in the World? He'd sell World Championships. He'd sell you a bike and then come back and say, "Well, you never said you wanted it to be fast."
Yes.
It's a different price.
Titanium exhaust.
Yes. Those were the days. Yes, when there was a very loose meaning of what a factory bike actually entailed at Aprilia, and
there were four of them.
Yeah, that's right. Do we agree though that Dovizioso is Ducati's best shot and vice versa at this point?
Yeah, I don't know.
We're talking about a crazy championship. We don't know how many races we're going to have.
I still have, and this is going to make me really, I still have a bit of faith in Jorge. I really do.
Whoa.
And if you'd have to be okay. You'd have to be desperate and have maybe no alternative. But if Dovi is now more interested in the size of the cheque and his retirement fund than anything else, maybe it is a realistic option. I don't know what you're, Dennis. I don't know what Spain thinks, but watching it from afar, I can't get rid of this feeling that Jorge might be in the frame.
And also in a championship where he would have 7 home races, circuits that he knows. I mean, this is a real advantage for all the Spanish riders, although most guys in the World Championship now came up through the CEV anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
these Spanish tracks, they might not know how to go. Well, yeah, they'd all know it. They know everything.
It's only Cal who didn't come up that route, and the old boy Valentino,
and Petrucci.
Red Bull did that movie with Dovizioso inside the Ducati garage. It was put on the Red Bull site, and it was a fascinating watch because it really was a very, don't see that sort of access, and then for it to become public at any time. And
Yeah.
the thing that I took away from that is Dovi just seemed very discouraged about riding at Ducati, and the numerous people have said. I mean, there's a dozen people that are basically telling him how to do his job, and none of them are riders. So it's I really saw a guy who was trying to exit.
That's the way Ducati's always been.
Oh, yeah.
I was doing an interview once with Filippo Preziosi, and he barely got to answer any questions because Livio Supa, who knew nothing about what we were discussing, answered all the questions, technical questions.
Yep.
He could put his finger in the air and say, actually.
Yep. Sounds like
Ducati's a crazy place. It always has been. I remember going to Ducati back in the old days. I had a meeting with Fabio Taglioni, and they were on strike. And they snuck me into the back of the place with some maintenance guys, and then the laundry truck showed up. I might have told you the story before. The laundry truck, they allowed that in. They opened the door of the laundry truck, and first came the smoke, and then came Taglioni out of the back of the laundry truck. And he said, don't tell Cosimo. I said I was going to talk to Cosimo Calcagnile, who was then the president of Ducati. He said, don't tell him I'm here.
That's great.
The region of Italy that was the last stronghold of Italian domestic Marxism.
True, very true. I think it's been that way, as you say, Dennis, for a long time. I used to know a guy who rode there for the Ducati factory team, and basically what he said was, at the end of every discussion, every single discussion regarding the motorcycle he was racing and the effort and the level, etc., at the end, it was always the rider's fault because you just weren't fast enough, and if they couldn't express that, they left you with immense guilt raised that it's your fault, and there you have it. How are you going to get faster? And
I don't think that's unique to Ducati. I had my last race I did at Valencia, I had a long interview with the HRC boss with the intention of updating my V4 book, which I've still not done. And we, of course, got onto the 800, and we went through there, why it didn't work, and he got exasperated. The reason the 800 took 5 years is we listened to the riders.
I remember when they came up to Great Britain with Spaggiari to ride at Silverstone, and they had the big glass-sided van. You remember that? They had a beautiful, it was tremendous. Actually, it was just a little motorhome by today's standards. But they somehow, on the way to the racetrack the day before, they wandered over into the area, I'm trying to think of the Metro, Angel stop, wherever that is in London, around the Angel Metro stop.
Angel Islington in North London, yeah.
Yeah, and they went into a cafe, and when they came out, the van was gone with all the Ducatis. The police had hauled it away. And they didn't have cell phones, and they had no coins. So
plenty of Italians around that part of London, they'd have got it back.
Eventually.
That was the time that they decided that Bruno Spaggiari had to stop wearing a Pudenbasin helmet. So they waited until right before the start of the race, and someone had stolen it. And Spaggiari is running around with his hands in the air, looking every place for his helmet, because he's never going to wear one of those letterbox helmets. And he realized if he didn't put on a helmet, he wasn't going to get to be in the race. And somebody produced this, Bell helmet, white Bell with nothing on it at all. And they said they just found it. And then, unfortunately, somebody had written Bruno on the back of it, so they took it separate from the ones they used on their scooters. Because at that time, Ducati were wearing integral helmets to ride scooters, but Bruno was racing with a Pudenbasin.
Menicali, at one time we were good friends, and the thing that always haunted him, and he was unable to ever get past, was that Stoner was able to produce something that no one else could, and Claudio he really expected that from a lot of different riders, and at the time he didn't understand how what an individual and what an incredible force Casey was and his ability to do. So that has always been in the back of his mind. If Casey rode this bike, we'd be winning. Or it's difficult for him, and I'm sure it's still to this day. I have no question that he still thinks that the rider can be faster. How about young Cal? What the heck now? He told me he's going to work at Home Depot next year. That's what he said. That's.
Are they hiring?
Well, he lives in a pretty affluent part of California. They probably are hiring. Yeah.
It was some time back that I saw a picture of. I realized he was testing the superbike or the four-stroke. Anyway, I mean the production-based bike. And I jumped to a conclusion that he might be going to superbike, and it was Julian who came on immediately afterward and said, "I believe that would be for the 8 hours."
Is he doing the 8 hour this year? Is there an 8 hour?
There is, but it's going to be regular teams only in Japanese teams.
Okay.
I mean, Le Mans happening next weekend, but it's literally going to be like a French domestic event.
My sense is that Cal was blindsided by all the movement of Alex Marquez into his team and Pole being upgraded to supposedly the spot across from Marc Marquez.
Yeah, but Marquez was going to go to Honda at some point in time, and Dennis will tell me why I'm wrong here. If I do get it wrong, the Lorenzo thing left an emergency situation for 1 year.
Yes, yeah, and their decision. Marquez was not a long-term deal at all. He was available, and he was available when no one else was available. With the 2-year contract rotation. So their attitude and what they discussed with Mark and with Alsamora, with their people, was halfway through the season, we'll evaluate whether Alex should continue in the factory team or whether we move him, give him more experience with Lucio. Well, we're halfway through the season, and all we've got are some preseason practice. So Honda, on the basis of the information they've got, have to come to the conclusion, well, we better go for a sure thing. And Pol Espargaro is a very good rider, very aggressive rider.
Yes.
He is.
And of course, Nakagami is 3 years in now. So he's reaching the end of the traditional Honda, the patience stretches to 3 years.
And in Dematsu, or however you pronounce it, they are, that the Lucio's team cannot roll without them. They're paying for Nakagami and much, much more. So I guess some people have a problem with Taka having a ride and Cal not, based on accomplishments or whatever. But it's the way it is. Yeah, true, well, yeah. True.
Yeah, and I would imagine Alex Marquez might get some, that Lucio might get some relief financially for taking Marquez.
Yep.
Of course.
Yeah, and
he's not a complicated guy. He doesn't have an entourage of 20 people that he wants to walk into the garage. He's just a rider coming over. Like Mark was in the beginning. Mark only brought his whole crew over after they proved they couldn't count to 10 in Australia. On the basis of that, he said, we just need more of those guys. If we'd had more guys, we would have figured it out.
Do you think Cal's honesty has been a hindrance in terms of his relationship with Honda and the current events? In that, Marquez stole my mechanics, we can't get any parts, this bike, is useless on the front, etc.
I think it was only a couple of years ago, he actually got an HRC badge on the leathers.
True.
As he said, because, I'm normal. I'm not Marc Marquez, and I don't weigh 50 kilograms.
True.
I don't see it, and Honda will understand Cal, and they understand. It didn't take them long. If there was a problem with Cal's spikiness, not unique amongst racers, it would have been a problem 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, I think what Honda wanted most from Cal was several podiums to demonstrate to themselves, to confirm to themselves that this motorcycle that they built, that Marc Marquez is winning all these races in, is really not a dog, like some people are saying it is. That you know, without Marquez they could do nothing, and Honda don't like to hear that. Honda would rather have the fastest, best motorcycle on the track and not find the rider to win with it. Then they'd go look for him. But to be winning and have their bike doubted.
Agreed completely.
And Cal wasn't delivering, you know, the last season as he had been in prior seasons.
Okay, but I mean, he did have a giant crash, and that foot injury. It was amazing that he rode at all, honestly. So,
and certainly last year he kept the effects pretty well.
He did
from outside world.
He did.
So will he go to Aprilia?
Well, I think Carmelo, the Dorner noises appear to be that Carmelo wants to keep him because he's the only Brit at the moment. And, you know, for all the usual reasons, Carmelo thinks it's useful to have a British rider up the sharp end. The bike's getting better. Why not?
Certainly. I have no problem with him going to Aprilia, and that he could conceivably do well there. Because he certainly is fast enough and has the knowledge.
He's ridden everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, he's ridden everything in the paddock just about, except the Suzuki. No.
KTM.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting the two boys, Dennis.
I thought Cal would go to KTM. I was a little surprised that there wasn't more noise about that. I thought he would.
I think the Marquez model is why people like Kaika Lecuona, Oliveira. I mean, Lecuona, all you hear about him is a complete animal. You know, he gets a motorcycle, he slaps it about, you know, complete maniac on the front end, and doesn't care. And that's the type that the factories want.
True.
You think, you know, how else do you beat Marquez?
Yep.
You know, the team manager's job is not to give a quite good bloke another year's employment. It's to find the next damn world champion. And the only way to do it at the moment, see Dovizioso and Ducati, is to put a young, nerveless idiot on it. I paraphrase.
You know, as we look back to the 2018 season, you know, you looked at Mir and Quartararo. In spite of their youthful promise, between the two of them, a handful of podiums and one win by Quartararo during that season, finishing 6th and Quartararo 10th. So, you know, that I think you're right. I think they're looking for something magic. They're looking for some very aggressive, you know.
A Brad Binder.
They're looking for a Marquez.
Yeah, because that's the only way you're going to beat Marquez is with another Marquez, as we stand at the moment.
We've got 11 racetracks on this schedule. You know, 16 races now with Cota out.
Yep.
And Mark, if you count them as individual, you know, count the track twice, Mark won 13 out of 16 on tracks last year. Dovi 2 and Vinales 1. I mean, have we ever gone into a season with a bigger favorite? Not since Agostini, I reckon. Or
True.
Or doing, yeah.
Yeah, or Rossi after we realized that, yeah. Or Rossi also.
Rossi in the first 2 years of Moto Grand Prix, yeah.
Yeah.
No, Miller moves to the factory team, teamed with hopefully Dovizioso, but it could be. I mean, is Cal? He keeps saying that he could go back to Ducati tomorrow. They would welcome him with open arms. I don't know if that's true.
Well, you know, I've learnt not to predict things about Ducati. No, that would be crazy, and they go and do it. So
True.
You know, I don't see it. Bagnaia underachieved in his rookie year. I thought he was going to be rookie of the year by a street. It never happened. But I think there is plenty to come from Pecco, who you know, full disclosure, I've always admired the way he rides a motorbike.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a remarkable rider, but he's not quite done what I hoped he'd do by now.
What can we say about Mr. Iannone? Let's just change gears. It's really been an interesting situation to watch from several perspectives, and including the one where it's just incredible how his manager manages to fluff up, or how would you say it, the Italian press. He's got those guys wrapped around his finger, as to what he thinks is internally is possible. And in the end, Wada is ready to swat that guy if he comes up against him, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, rule one, anybody who's followed anything to do with WADA in any sport and court of arbitration for sport, line one, an athlete is responsible for what's in his body.
Yep. True.
End of. There was a British skier who got a Scottish lad who got a bronze medal at a Winter Olympics. It would have been the first ever Olympic medal on snow for this country. He'd taken a cold remedy, the exact one that's cleared at home, but they were in Canada or the States, and the recipe was different.
Yep.
That's it, mate. No medal, disqualified.
Yeah.
It is that.
Well, it's not an easy thing to do sometimes. I remember when Kenny was racing in Spain, and every medication that he might take for a cold or for light asthma that he was having at the time, we would have to go to Dr. Meir, and Dr. Meir's secretary, who did the research, and find out, is this a drug that under another name or that some components in it would result in a disqualification?
Yep.
You got to know that stuff.
Yeah, and every athlete at world level in any sport in the world has to take that sort of precaution. It's part of the job now.
Exactly. I mean, it's far be it from me to quote Colin Edwards on anything, but the year he and Haga fought over the World Superbike Championship, when Haga got busted with the ephedrine or whatever via a cold remedy, I mean, Colin, he was very clear in saying that, when he had a situation like that, I mean, he basically went and grabbed everything in the cold aisle in terms of non-prescription stuff, took it all to his dietitian and threw it on the desk and asked, what legally can I take here?
Yeah.
And leave it that way.
If you're going to try and claim that it was in the steak you ate in a restaurant, don't claim that when the drug involved was a very expensive high-tech one, not the cheap shit that you Americans put into cattle.
Moo! Hey. Yes, it's true. It's everywhere, and I mean, let's face it. For the first 3 years that Nicky was in MotoGP, he had a guy traveling with him to make sure he was eating the right stuff.
Back in the old days, that's what Dean Miller used to do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
There was nothing illegal about Budweiser, so Roberts was okay.
I was waiting for it. I knew there was going to be something. I was just waiting when Dean Miller's name was mentioned. I didn't know which comment you were going to make, but yeah, there was. So
if we consider Iannone out, I mean, we consider Iannone's career is over.
I do.
Yep. I mean, maybe he's going to race the Italian Championship or maybe somebody put him on a superbike.
That would have to be a ways down the road, right? I mean, he cannot ride anything in a semi-FIM affiliated championship for another year, and then if he really does file an appeal and they hit him with 4 years, as seen with Anthony West, they'll chase your ass to the end of the world and get you off that bike.
Absolutely.
So that means now we're listing Bradley Smith officially for the remainder for this season. I see that on today's Dorna Moto Grand Prix team site, his picture's up. It wasn't a couple days ago.
I thought he was only confirmed for the first 2 races.
I don't know. I know he's listed. Yeah, that's probably well.
I think that's the party line.
Good spot for him. I mean, good rider, and
Well, he did 24 podiums in all classes of Grand Prix, across all classes of Grand Prix
For sure.
racing. You know, that's
Yep.
that's the CV.
True. So
I think we've covered all our teams now, except Vintia, and we know what Suzuki's doing, so we know who's going to be out there.
are these teams going to survive? I mean, they are entertainment entities, and I mean, I know Dorna is subsidizing. How long can they subsidize for? I'm not sure that.
We've frozen the specs for this year and next year, so theoretically you're not going to have any expensive development going on. Although Honda will figure out a way to spend money.
But I mean, they still have day-to-day running costs of a MotoGP team. You know, you can close the doors and whatnot, but also you're not getting any income from your sponsors in terms of being on television and gathering that stuff up. You know,
Lucio is a master of walking the edge of the tax laws in various countries.
Speaking of tax laws, how about that CETO, Dennis? Come on, tell us about this. That's a huge number. That's impressive.
I can't hear you.
What took them so long to get him?
Well, I thought he could just call the Carlos guy and everything was handled. I mean, that was the way it used to be, that he used to be able to call the king and make all kinds of stuff go away, was my understanding through Rainey. So
yeah. Nieto's idea, who always paid his taxes in Spain, by the way, was
smart.
that if you resided outside of Spain, you should let people learn the Andorran national anthem and the Swiss national anthem with their flags going up, and that would put a stop to it right away.
True. Very true. Very true.
That's a new Angel Nieto story. I love it.
It was such a privilege to work. I worked with Nieto for 5 years, in the booth. I knew him always before as a journalist, but in the booth with him. I mean, what he said off the air, and of course it remains off the air, but he was a master. And sometimes it was hard to come back on because we were laughing ourselves to death in the booth.
I'm sure. Yes.
By something he'd said during the commercial.
Yeah. I also got a lot, associating with the Dutch a lot, the people who raced against him. God, they suffered.
We got him really good one time because he was in the booth and he was eating pipas. I don't know what pipas are, little Spanish nuts or something. Anyway, he was really going at him. So we waited till he had his mouth completely full of pipas. We said, this is a question that only Angel Nieto could answer.
And
he got rid of the pipas all over the desk and into his hand. And he was
time for a Nieto story or not?
There's always time for a Nieto story, I think, isn't there, Dean?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yes, certainly.
Again, basically from the Dutch and the non-Spanish riders, and in the early days, the big 50 fight was the Dutch versus Angel. They just referred to him as the bastard. That was the.
Yep.
The Italians called him El Cabrone, which is the bastard in Italian.
Mm-hmm.
Goat with horn. The horn, not horned because he was the devil.
Yep.
Anyway.
Prickly, little prickly.
I don't know who told me. You might have even told me this one, Dennis, about Aston when they had a new motor. They hadn't had time to check the motor to run it in. So Nieto went to race control. Spanish television want me to do a lap behind the car. 2 laps later, okay, boys, the motor.
Yeah, the motor's good. Beautiful. That's beautiful. We started talking a little bit about Rossi. I mean, seems like it's all falling to plan. That he is going to ride over at Petronas and he's going to do a contract extension. But what if he sucks? What if he's said many times he's not going to race if it isn't fun? And what if he comes back? Man, it's not fun.
I think if Valentino were a baseball player, everybody would be delighted that he's still out there, that we can still get to see him. But there's kind of an attitude I think it's a Southern European attitude that, guys have to retire when they stop winning. If Valentino still enjoys racing, and he does, he could be around another 2 or 3 years.
He could. And would he still be around if he wasn't enjoying it?
Well, I think he was going to the grid on Sunday with illusion, as we say in Spanish, believing that he could do it. They always used to pull something out of the bag on Saturday night. And he always believed that no matter how things were going on Saturday, that on Sunday morning, something was going to happen and he was going to find himself up front.
True. And he did work himself into... Jules, what do you think of the prospect of Valentino not liking what happens this year and basing a future decision on that?
I don't know. With Valentino, I just always think that he doesn't know what he's going to be thinking in 2 weeks' time anyway. Historically, I've just expected him to wake up one morning and decide, you know what, I want to go to Ibiza for a month. And he's another, it's like Ducati. I think predicting what he'll do, if you're not one who's in a circle, is pretty, I don't do it anymore.
Should we talk a little bit about World Superbike? Scott Redding he's jumping in and doing fantastic things. Go ahead.
He was always going to. This is, the youngest ever Grand Prix winner in his time.
True.
Podium in Moto Grand Prix, Moto 2 winner, could have been Moto 2 world champion. It's easy to forget because he does a very good impression of being a gormless idiot at times. And he's the last person I would put that label on. Scott, when you actually talk to him slightly seriously about motorbikes, racing, sport, how to conduct yourself, is the genuine article.
Yes.
I am a fan. I think because of his size, Superbikes is probably the right place for him. And he's going to give Johnny Ray a hard time. He's going to win races. Now, whether he can beat Johnny in a championship, that's going to be the fun of watching that one play out.
Dennis, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think he's coming into Ducati at just the right time. They had a year to sort that bike out. Bautista was off and running off to the races last year on all those racetracks that he knew very well. Tracks where he had raced Moto Grand Prix bike. And as the schedule worked out, when he started hitting the tracks he didn't know, and even Jerez, when he was overconfident in Jerez and lost the front. But Bautista kind of fell apart on us last year.
Kind of.
But now Ducati have all the references to that bike. They can fall back on something. So this is important for Redding. And at the same time, Bautista is in the same situation as he was in last year, but worse, because Honda have no data to fall back on except what they were fooling around with last year. And also this is an inline four with all the changes that requires in a guy like Bautista who's ridden V's all his life. Even his Suzuki Moto Grand Prix bike was a V4 back then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think Redding's dangerous. I think Redding could be good. Could be a really exciting championship with Rathkatlioglu, who I think is really highly motivated. He's walked into that team and he's become that team with all the Turkish backing he's got, and with Soupkast in there with him. That garage feels like his garage.
Has anybody got any clue as to what's going on with Chaz Davies in that he hasn't been able to extract really much out of that race-winning Ducati other than at Laguna last year where he was, I think, a masterful double, if I recall, something close to that. Really a difficult journey for him, and he's well off the pace usually in most tests and most practices, and looks very uncomfortable on the bike.
Yeah, and that's what he thought he was going to be, because he thought that, off the corner response of the V-twin, the real difficult jerk, highly strung way the V-twin behaved, and what it was, a big ball lean motor. He thought the V4 was going to be easier, and I think was a little shocked when it, hello, it's a Motor Grand Prix bike.
Yep.
And he has not. I haven't talked to him for quite a few months, but he was. I think probably before Laguna was the last time I talked to Chaz, and he was saying that it boiled down to he just hadn't found a base setting.
Yeah.
I'm a massive fan of Chaz Davis as a rider and as a
For sure. Mm-hmm.
but I just don't think he got to grips with the bike at all, frankly.
Dennis?
The only race I saw Dennis quickly was Portugal, and there was the last corner at Portugal. Any time he pushed through there, he had big moments, horrible moments. And that last sector of the lap just did for him, because in a long, fast corner, it was clearly not telling him anything.
He did come on toward the end of last season. He had better results over the second half. In fact, toward the end of the season, you'd have to say he was faster than Bautista, or as fast on the team.
Bautista was blown up.
Yep, he was destroyed. So
I think this World Superbike Championship really looks interesting this year, because that long in the tooth, long stroke Kawasaki, which really is kind of an old bike. The concept of that bike, it's really a road bike, and mostly road bike engine. And those super bikes now are going to the 81 millimeter bore and 45s. They've gone Moto Grand Prix on us, and they've gone Moto Grand Prix with less revs, so they're overbuilt. And I think Ray, and Alex Lowe's, who really was very good,
Yep.
looks very good on that bike, and he's leading the championship, by the way. After those first rounds in Qatar. You remember Qatar? Remember back then?
Way back, yep.
Yeah, way back then. So I think that team is just fantastic. The Kawasaki squad, which is around the corner.
Yep.
That is absolutely a Moto Grand Prix level team.
For sure. Yep.
Right the way through.
Yep. And Pierre Ribe, he's a general. He's
If he hadn't signed to ride for Dantine, in 500 when Crivier was fainting, at the end of his career, and Dantine needed him, he was just stepping into his own as a super sport rider. He just had his first win, the whole thing, and that 500 ride was the kiss of death over there.
It was. Dennis?
Yes.
You come up with a subject. You're always good for an obscure subject. Come on, the last one. We can all go back to mask shopping.
So somehow we have to find out that there are elements to this Moto Grand Prix season that are going to work against Marquez. Somehow or another, even though he's the guy who's most benefited from the big delay, because he would have begun the season with a bad shoulder.
Yep.
Okay, so what is it? Why is who's going to beat Marquez? Somebody's got to beat Marquez this year. Who's it going to be? What works against him?
The new tire?
Maybe.
Yeah, there's something.
That's probably the best bet best hope anyone has.
He'll figure out how to uncrash that right away.
Yes, but the only guy who looked like he was going to last year was Quartararo, and we're still waiting and hoping that when Quartararo does get that first win, the dam breaks.
Yep.
And Mark will do whatever it takes to make sure he doesn't get that first win.
Yep.
I'll tell you, the guy that really bothers Mark more than Quartararo is Vinales. I don't know why, because Vinales beat him by 3 seconds. And that seemed like an eternity. Yeah, that seemed like an eternity to him. Well, I'll tell you. Remember, I did some stats a few years ago with Martin Raines, as you've worked with Martin Raines yourself, Julian, many times, and we worked out that at one point, halfway through the 2018 season, Marquez's winning percentage on left-handed circuits was 80%, and on right-handers was under 20, was just about 26% at that time.
Dirt tracker.
You know, and he's improved those numbers since. But of the tracks we've lost this year, some of those were his regular left-handers. Kota for sure. Saxon Ring, Phillip Island. You know.
But he's still got Aragon.
He's got Aragon and he's got Valencia, although Valencia hasn't always been that good to him. But those are the only two left-handed. I just happen to have off the top of my head the fact that this year we have 98 left-hand corners and 125 right-handers.
Wow!
Just encouraging.
To Martin Ray.
No, this is all 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
This is a kind of season where a broken collarbone, an injury,
Oh yeah. Yep.
could really make a difference. You've got back-to-back Jerez, you've got Czech Republic, and you're going to Austria twice. You get it right in one. You know, you've got a second chance. I don't think we've ever had a season, have we, Jules, where we ran 2 races on the same track?
Not to my knowledge, and never, of course, so concentrated. Where I think the point, you know, even a minor injury is going to affect for half the season.
I mean, look at Dovizioso with the collarbone break.
Yeah.
I mean, he's lucky that he broke his collarbone when he did, because he's got time to, you know, get back out there. Had he broken it today, or the guy who breaks his collarbone in the warm up on Sunday is screwed.
Yep.
Yes.
True.
You know, 50 points, 75 points. Yeah.
Yep.
I said Dobby had to think, well, I've got 2 goes at the A1 ring, but that's not a Ducati certainty anymore.
No.
So if you're Valentino, you've got to figure, okay, I need to score points everywhere.
Yep. And then
score points everywhere, because this can be the year that I do it, because they owe me one.
Yep.
You know, they got to give it back the one they took away. He wants that one.
Score points all he can. Yep. Well, score every point he can early on. Stay on, hang on, and then towards the end, push as much as you can to see how it all falls out.
I mean, is this going to be a 16-race season or a 13-race season? You know, we've already lost Kota, and going to Argentina without going to America, I don't know if that made sense. And then Thailand and Malaysia, they're going to make that decision is not going to be made by motorcycle people. You know, Dornas, we're lucky that there is a Spanish promoter who's able to bring 4 tracks on board, and also Portugal. Well, no, we didn't get Portugal. That's for Superbike. You know, but we're able to run this compact series. Hopefully, we're able to run this. That we don't have some infections, and we don't have some kind of, you know, let's just not even think about it.
True, and also they have, you know, the investment bankers, the money people behind Dorna, Canadian Teachers Pension Union, or whatever. They are fine with spending money to maintain the series until things come back. So I mean, the
venture capitalists that own Dorna are basically based in Britain. It's Canadian, as you say. The Canadian pension fund is a big holder. They love it. Dorna makes them money.
Oh yeah, yep.
And Portugal is the reserve track.
Yeah, that's right.
So
and they are.
I don't
and
know
they are running.
Whether all of a sudden we're going to go to Portimao twice. You know, if Thailand and Malaysia can't happen.
Yep.
Well, I mean, if we run, I think the thing is you have to know by the time you get to Catalunya or Le Mans how many races there are left. You know, I mean, I remember what happened with Pons and Garriga. We had 2 races left to go, and Garriga was rubbing his hands together saying, I got this guy. And then all of a sudden, Argentina took a dump. You know?
And there it was.
And then they hired Martin Wimmer to help him out in Brazil.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Run Garriga off the track. So,
Yep. Somebody said they saw Wimmer in a gas station in Iowa not that long ago. Like, I think he's living in the U.S., believe it or not. Shocking.
Shouldn't be saying that online. They might be listening.
Oh.
Folks that are looking for him.
Oh.
So, I mean, really, though, you know, if you look at this, I mean, Marquez he doesn't have a weakness out there. Okay, I'm really fishing to try and say that he lost a couple of left-hand tracks. Man, he dominated Kota to the point that you could just throw his helmet out there and he'd get 25 points.
Yeah, almost. Yep.
So that's a little bit of a and Germany as well.
Yeah, and Germany and Aragon.
Yeah. And Valencia, left-handed track, but it's a dodgy place.
Yes.
Dodgy grip, and that shadow on the straightaway too, going into it's a strange place.
Yes.
Ask Valentino.
Yeah, it's it.
The idea is to have spectators in the grandstand for the last. The last I heard was the idea of having spectators in the grandstand at least by Valencia.
I think in Europe things are a lot better than they are here, obviously. So I think
except in the UK.
Really.
Oh, we're behind the rest. We're pretty much behind the rest of Europe due to our mini Trump Prime Minister as much as anything else.
Yeah, he survived it, right? Is that the guy?
Yes, yeah, he was in intensive care.
No? Okay. Well,
I'm still looking here. Okay, so the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tracks all have straightaways around 600 meters or less. So who does that favor? You've got
Ducati.
Not Ducati, and not necessarily Honda.
Suzuki.
This could be Suzuki territory, Yamaha territory.
Maybe.
And, the fastest track we go is Argentina if we go there. The long straight.
Which seems unlikely.
I thought I was not surprised, and I don't think Dean was either. Probably you weren't either, Jules, to find that Kota couldn't run the race.
Yeah. No, that seems.
They've got problems as well.
For sure, certainly.
Everybody does. And I was talking to Kevin Swans, who's very close to them, and he was saying, if there can be spectators, it makes sense. These are not state-owned tracks like most of the other circuits that we're talking about are.
No, and Bobby's money guy, Red McCombs, is out of the picture, and
Red McCombs is the only guy I know that has an army.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I was talking to him down there when he had that press conference that nobody went to. I bet you weren't there, were you, Julian?
I was there.
Were you there? That's right.
Yeah. I was there, but yeah, he's a used car guy. I mean, he's a car salesman kind of guy.
He owns an army.
Well, he owns a lot of things. But his entire investment at Kota, from what I understand, was based upon the fact that he thought he could get some sort of state gambling in there somehow. And when it became apparent that wasn't going to happen, he was not happy, and neither was his daughter, because he had spent an absolute fortune there, even for a billionaire. For example, when the contractor dug the pit for the track, and then no money was coming, so he pulled up all of his cranes, all of his earth-moving stuff, everything, and moved them to another job location. Kota called and said, okay, well, we have the money. Can you come back? And he said, sure, I can bring everything back, but Red's going to write me a check for $1 million. $1 million to do this. And Red wrote the check. $1 million to move that stuff back in. So,
well, that's a track that was an automatic for Mark. I'm still trying to figure out some way that we can convince ourselves that somebody can beat Mark this year. Who's it going to be? I mean, is Quartararo? Maybe Quartararo doesn't win a race all season. Mark just won't let him win one. Yeah, it's hard to imagine.
Yep.
And the Suzuki guys are here one day, and then the next day they disappear for a while,
So are we saying it's got to be a miracle, like Brad Binder and the KTM, find that they can...
I think...
Is that what we're fishing for, something that remote?
No, I think what we're looking for is somehow Mark doesn't score in four races,
So either Honda make a porker again, or the tyre really doesn't work on the Honda.
Yeah, something like that, you know, or just...
That's what we're postulating.
Yep. I just don't see him not being able to solve a major tire issue when he's got to go against those guys. I just think he'll override it however he has to do it.
I was talking to Kevin Cameron a little while back about Mark, you know, and about his riding style, and he was saying, well, when Roberts, you know, Sarnen, you know, the knee down stuff, the scrub off speed on the way in and fire it out, it was something you could understand. It was just hard to do, but you could understand it. And there were a lot of Americans who could do it, and some Australians who could do it, and Europeans began to get a little better at that style of riding, and then it changed. People copied, but who's copying Mark? I mean, it's Kevin who used that word uncrash, because he said that's what he does. He's created the uncrash. It's just a slow lap time. It's just a slow lap time, you know?
Yep.
But even though he's got the front wheel 6 inches off the track, and he's sliding along on his knee, and then he lays that front wheel back down, turns it into the corner, it catches and picks the motorcycle up again, and then he knows just when to jerk it up, and it's not accidental.
Exactly. It's the same as Casey talked when he talked about, it was almost like Lawson and flicking the bitch, and, you know, the way he put it into a corner. And basically, Bradley Smith read the interview. Oxley did it. Brad said, I thought I'd try the Casey technique out on turn, whatever. High-sided himself into the middle of next week.
Yep.
Casey and Ben Spees, I forget which track. But
Phillip Island. Yep, where he said...
When Valentino or Jorge, the factory Yamaha riders, this must be Ben's rookie year I'm talking about. They come past me, I can look, and I understand what they're doing. And the implication, he could do that.
You remember the Spanish trick rider, the stunt rider, E.T., they called him?
Yes.
Who used to do, and I, at one point, I ended up being his manager for some reason. I don't know how in the hell that happened. And I brought him to the Coliseum, you know, with the, what was it, Pace. Pace used to run those events. And so they paid him a good salary to jump, but he wanted to race, you know, because he didn't like this jumping stuff. He really wanted to race. But what Kevin was saying was that it seemed like he was doing things that were impossible. And then everybody else started doing it. And then somebody did a complete backflip and a double, whatever they're doing. But that's not happening. This is what I'm saying.
No, that is the point. Yep.
Just to finish the Ben quote.
Go ahead. Sorry.
He understood the factory argument, but when Casey comes past, I don't know how he does it with another Casey Stoner.
That's the same thing Nicky Hayden told me once, that he could follow Casey for a couple of corners, and he could do what Casey did looking at his data in a couple of corners, but not for a whole lap, man.
Exactly what Crutchlow's always said. Of course I can look at Casey's data. You think it does me any good?
Yep. I think it's Marquez has been a seismic moment in MotoGP a lot, the same way that Roberts was a seismic moment in Grand Prix, in that he really changed how people thought about how to ride the motorcycle, in spinning it from the back and going at it that way. A lot of guys came along, as you've said, Dennis, a lot of guys came along and were able to do it as well, but nobody has come along and been able to mimic or beat Mark, really.
There's a golf quote. I'm sorry to mention golf, but I think it was Arnold Palmer when the young Jack Nicklaus arrived. And the quote was, "He is playing a game with which I am unfamiliar."
Yep.
I remember that quote.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. And that's what we've got here.
He signed for 4 years.
Yeah.
So,
And that was pretty smart. That was pretty smart on Honda's part.
Definitely. Okay, it might be him, not the motorbike. We'll swallow that and we'll get on with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, all the other Honda riders are so demoralized and unable to ride that bike that if he left Honda, it would be the self-fulfilling prophecy of the bike's no good. It was all Mark.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
I think Honda loved having a rider who just wants more power. You know, he didn't
Yeah.
always just want more power. He wanted to turn and all that, but he never complained about more power.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, again, I'm back.
I remember when Mick Doohan when Mick Doohan was injured in Jerez, and then went back to the States and had his operations, and Crivier won the championship. We were doing a book about Alex Crivier in Spain, and I interviewed Mick, his advice for Alex. And his advice for Alex was, don't go anywhere near that 200 horsepower Honda. And of course he said, but he will, because they're going to tell him this is what Mick was using, you know.
Yep.
2000, Jerry Burgess told me when Valentino's rookie year on the 500, it's working, factory team is, but Crivier did what everybody who wins the championship and doesn't understand how he did it does. He asked for more power.
And they also wanted to give it to him because they really wanted, I mean, I was talking to Wayne. I had a conversation the other day with both Wayne and Kevin separately, but about the same race. And both of them had the same experience at Nürburgring in 1993, the day that Shinichi Ito went 200 miles an hour. Hockenheim, did I say Nürburgring? Hockenheim, that he went 200 miles an hour coming the straightaway back in from the forest. And I also remember Mike Scott's question that day. When Mike Scott asked Mick, or not Mick, he asked Ito, what does it feel like to go 200 miles an hour? And Ito said, very similar to 199.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Mike was struggling. He thought for once he didn't have to ask to it. I could get it straight.
Yep.
You know? But anyway, in that race, he was riding the fuel injected Honda, and Wayne was having trouble in that race, and Yamaha was having trouble. They were down on power, and he was back and forth, fifth place. And he said he was coming up to the braking right-hander into the stadium, and all of a sudden his revs began to fall steadily. And then he felt a push toward the outside of the racetrack. And Ito flashed by on the inside. Mm-hmm. And he said, okay, there are explanations for that, aerodynamic, but I never felt it before. Never felt something like that. And I was talking to Kevin, and I just happened to mention, he said, what'd he say? And then he told me, because Kevin lost the race that day to Daryl Beattie. Beattie he was all ready to make a move on Beattie, as he had done 2 years prior to Wayne, when he passed Wayne going in, and held on. He was all set up to do it. In fact, he said he was working on his podium speech. And so his revs start to fall off, and he feels himself being pushed to the other side of the track. And here comes Ito through. And, of course, he did manage to pass Ito, but he lost the race. And he said he never felt anything like that before. I don't know. Those speeds are not so great compared to today's speeds, but there must have been something different about that Honda. Or the difference in speed.
That's an aerodynamic effect. I would suggest that's more sophisticated. I've heard this not from bike racers, I think from car racers, about it pulls you back.
Yeah, well, I think it interferes with the closing of your own draft.
Which is the most significant.
Right, the motorcycles are like a brick anyway, aerodynamically.
Yeah, exactly.
So you make them more of a brick, then... Yeah.
And leaving the air is the important bit, not how you arrive.
So, I don't know how we're going to beat Marquez. You guys have no help at all.
Yeah. Well, Marquez, the key is if he gets hurt early. If he gets hurt in the...
There's just no way to go into it, though, is it? You don't want to start a season that way. You want to start a season thinking, well, Mir's got something special, or Vinales or Rins or something.
Yeah.
Or Quartararo's finally going to burst out. And when he wins his first one, there's no stopping him. That's conceivable.